How's it, everyone? Welcome back to Seven Arbiter. My name is Gil, and on this channel we talk about South African law, how it is, why it is, and what it could be. Today's video is about the regulations regarding the ban on alcohol and cigarettes. We know that when South Africa went into lockdown, the government passed regulations and that effectively said we're not allowed to buy any alcohol and any cigarettes during this time. So today's question is that particular regulation or those regulations constitutional? Would they pass constitutional muster? Can the government legitimately ban those substances for this period? Okay, so to understand what I'm going to talk about in today's video, we need to understand a small concept about administrative law. Administrative law is essentially law that governs public powers. So when the government or government officials or some sort of government body normally makes decisions that adversely affect people, those decisions need to be in line with administrative law principles. So to that effect, Section 33 of the Constitution deals with administrative law. And the important thing here, I'm going to read it. It says, everyone has the right to administrative action that is lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair. My emphasis being on reasonableness, okay, because that's what I think this inquiry falls on. So reasonableness it's not an exactly defined concept. There's a few things that would go under this thing. The two main points that I want to stress for you is that the two main functions of reasonableness that I want to stress is rationality and proportionality. Okay, they're two elements, and every single decision that governments make in line with administrative law principles have to be both rational and proportional, along with other things. Okay, but those two are important. Okay, so what is rationality? It's basically about they're both about means and ends, but rationality is about, is there some sort of connection between the end you wish to achieve and the means you use to achieve that end, right? In other words, can the means that you decided to use further the end which you seek to achieve? Okay, there must be some connection there. Okay, and proportionality is about it's sort of an extension on means and ends, but those means need to be proportional to the ends. In other words, we don't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. You sort of don't be more excessive in terms of what kind of rights you're infringing than you need to be in order to give effect to the principle. Okay, so those are the two things, and I'll expand a bit about them just now. In terms of the two substances, cigarettes and alcohol, I think I'm going to deal with each of them separately, because I think my analysis, they can come to two different conclusions. So let's talk about cigarettes. Okay, there has been a complete ban on the buying of cigarettes, and we have to understand what is the purpose of that, right? It's not exactly clear why they banned it. I mean, just on the face of it, there is no clear, I guess, correlation between coronavirus and the smoking of cigarettes. Okay, on the face of it, and I think the purpose would have to be that cigarettes are known to give, weaken the immune system and give respiratory issues, lung problems. And if a person who smokes catches the coronavirus, I guess you could make an argument that that person would be more prone to needing emergency medical care because of those, because of the combination of the substance, right? And that's, I guess, the argument for the purpose of why they would have included that in the regulations. But I think what we need to understand is what has the government officials said to their purpose, right? From what I've read is that the purpose of the regulations is to stop the spread of coronavirus. It's not really there to regulate the healthcare system itself. It's not there to say, when patients come to the trauma center or the emergency center at any given hospital, how it should be dealt with. That's not what the regulations are for. The regulations are to regulate society, right? And in doing so, regulate the spread of the virus, stop the spread of the virus. So once we understand that, I think in terms of the rationality inquiry on cigarettes, it's a bit problematic because the argument that I presented to you for why we should have the ban for the cigarettes isn't exactly related to the spread. Okay, it's more related to the healthcare system's response, right? In other words, it can serve a purpose of reducing the spike and allowing the hospitals to have a capacity to treat patients. But in terms of the spread of the virus itself, which I foresee that's the real purpose for the regulations, then there isn't a rational connection. There's no rational connection between it doesn't further the purpose of stopping the spread of the virus by banning cigarettes. Also, I think it would probably fail a proportionality inquiry as well, just on the pure basis that it's already failed the rationality, and the rationality is a lower threshold. But on proportionality, we could also consider, is it absolutely necessary to ban cigarettes in order to stop the spread of the virus? Is there less restrictive ways that we could do this? Perhaps saying you can only buy one packet, or you can only buy cigarettes in small quantities. Perhaps there's like different ways you could consider the ban on cigarettes. And I think overall, if someone had to take this to court, to the High Court, and said this doesn't meet administrative law principles, it's not reasonable because it doesn't meet the principles of rationality and doesn't meet the principles of proportionality, and therefore the ban on cigarettes should be overturned. I just want to point out that I haven't emphasized the other health issues in terms of depriving people that are perhaps addicted to cigarettes with the withdrawal symptoms and the withdrawal consequences with that. That's a separate issue from my video. But I guess my point is, legally speaking, I don't think that the cigarette ban is constitutional. Now, when we talk about, let's move on to the alcohol ban. It's a separate issue. From what I've read so far, there's been some commentators, and I think Eusebius McKaiser spoke about this with an advocate, and they tended to also side with the same sort of argument that I made about the cigarettes, that it is also unconstitutional because it's irrational and unproportional to the means to the ends it hopes to achieve, right? And the same sort of argument that they spoke of. So some people would say it should be banned. Alcohol should be banned because it's known to reduce one's faculties and ability to make good decisions. And in that way, in that way, people are. If the more alcohol you drink, the more chance you are of getting injured and hurting other people. And in that way, we increase the capacity that, or the lack of capacity that the healthcare system can take. Right, because it's known that alcohol causes a lot of fights, it causes violence, and it causes injuries. Okay, and that means you take away the alcohol, you take away all those collateral injuries, and therefore we have more space at the hospitals to deal with coronavirus patients and not deal with drunks who have been shot or consequences of other drunk behavior. Right, but then again, that sort of argument, as some people have mentioned, doesn't really fit in with the purpose. The purpose of the regulations is to stop the spread of the virus. So once again, alcohol on the face of it doesn't really further that purpose, right? There's no rational connection between stopping the amount of people that end up at the hospital and the purpose for which the regulations were passed, which is to stop the spread of the virus. And for those reasons, some people have said that it would be irrational and the alcohol ban should be unconstitutional. My argument to that is I tend to think that there's an argument to be made that it is constitutional. In other words, the alcohol ban can pass constitutional muster and that it can be enforced, that we completely ban alcohol for this period. And my argument is that if we accept the basis that alcohol reduces one's ability to make good decisions, and alcohol reduces one's ability, I guess, to follow the law and make informed, conscious, voluntary decisions. And now, if we accept that basis, we must also surely accept that the lack of alcohol would prevent people from contravening the regulations themselves, which would then contribute to the spread of the virus. In other words, if you're drunk, there's more chance, you're sitting at home drinking beer and say, you know what, my friend next door, he might want to drink as well. I'm going to just walk outside my house and walk up the road to his house, and we can share beer together. It's that kind of thing that I would argue has some sort of rational connection as to why we should have the ban. Okay, in that way, there is a rational connection between stopping the spread of the virus through the banning of alcohol, and that's my argument. I think if you took this to court and you propose a good argument, I think you could possibly succeed in either. It depends how you want to argue it, right? In either keeping the ban or removing the ban. But like I said, I think there's an argument for both. But my point overall is that for the ban on cigarettes, I don't think there's a good argument to be made for keeping it. I think it certainly is irrational and certainly therefore also disproportional to the ends it hopes to achieve. And the cigarette ban is probably unconstitutional. When we talk about the alcohol ban, there's an argument to be made either way. That it doesn't. One would be that it doesn't really do anything for the spread of the virus, and therefore it's unconstitutional. Whereas you look at my argument, and I think there is something to be said about preventing people from contravening the regulations by stopping them drinking alcohol. Right? It's up to you how you want to argue it, but there's an argument either way. So that's my take on the constitutionality of the regulations banning alcohol and cigarettes. Let me know what you guys think. Should we keep this ban for the remainder of this lockdown? I know lots of people are struggling at the moment, but it's up to you. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Like I always say, like, subscribe, comment, share if you can. Yeah. Like I always leave you with my final message. The law is only a tool, and it only, like any good tool, it all depends on how you use it and how you understand it. So thank you very much, guys.